Is there a right way for parents to discipline their kids in public? We're going to talk about that and more on the Celebrate Kids podcast today.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
There's a thing in parenting that many of us look at and kind of just shrug our shoulders and say, that's real life. It happens oftentimes when you're parenting kids and something happens in the grocery store, or you're walking down the aisle at church and your kid acts in a way that's not becoming of how someone should act in that place. And you know your kid needs to be disciplined, but you don't know what to do. And in those moments, it can feel like all of the lights just went out in the room and the spotlight shines down on you and you don't know how to act, but you know that every other parent and every other kid in that room are looking at you. And that's when you wish that you could just turn off the lights, because those are incredibly dark times and dark moments for many parents. But we know that God has called us to live into the light and to have a perspective on how to approach those situations that not only gives hope and purpose to our kids, but also encourages and gives us as parents an understanding of what our role is in discipline. And that's what Dr. Kathy is going to offer us today on the Celebrate Kids podcast. The world is full of dark moments and dark situations and dark times, but we know that God's called us into the light. And today, Dr. Kathy is going to help us illuminate that. Let's look to Dr. Kathy for some wisdom on this matter. Dr. Kathy, there's a video circulating on the internet of a football coach, and this football coach throws his headset and he's seen yelling at the player after this player makes a mistake on the field, and it costs kind of the team. And in the course of the conversation that the commentator's having as he's watching this kind of transpire, the commentator kind of makes this comment that it's going too far. The cameras stay on the coach and the players as the coach is really, giving a tongue lashing to this young man that, made a mistake on the football field. And he's now being chastised on national TV. And the commentator kind of says that the coach is out of line because this young man is on national TV and he's getting chastised by his coach, which made me think, I've got 8 kids, Kathy, and, all 8 of them act like their father more than their mother most of the time, which means that they're usually in challenging situations where they might need some correction, because I need a lot of correction. But I've had this happen inside of kind of public situations, grocery store, at church, out on a walk, and we're walking by a baseball game or things like that. How can a parent do well to discipline in public when their kids might be, needing some discipline, needing some correction? Is there a good kind of approach, and what things should we have in our mind as we're engaging that, knowing, kind of thinking about it from the kid's standpoint?
That's an excellent question and really challenging. Normally, I'm in favor of teachable moment. In the offense is current in a child's mind. You want to jump on that and make sure they understand it. And if you're working on consistent reactions to temper tantrums or consistent reactions to, trying to cheat, it's easier to do that at home than it is at a grocery store or a public place. So my gut would be that sometimes you need to carry through in public like you would at home. And if the kid is embarrassed, the kid is embarrassed. And that's part of the consequence for your choice to be foolish in line at the grocery store. You know better because we have talked with you and we have taught you right from wrong. There are other times when I would not do that. I would whisper to the child. In fact, this coach who yelled, whispering is really powerful. When you whisper, the person has to be very attentive. And the words just often sink in way much deeper. So I might lean over to a son or daughter and whisper, you know that what you've done is wrong. I've seen you and I'm displeased. We'll talk later. This kid who played football, he knew that he was in trouble. He got off the field. Whatever he did wrong, he knew he did wrong. He did not need the coach to go off, and there's no way that kid heard anything that coach said. And so it's just a silly waste of time. It was the coach's attempt to, I'm in charge here and you better know it. And I'm a former coach. I understand how easy it is to be very frustrated when somebody who you believe could have done better didn't do better. But it's not about us, and it's not about our power. It's not the power of a parent. It's not the power of a coach. Discipline is training. Discipline is defined as training. It is not yelling and telling. It is training. And so I would calm down. And if I were a parent in the church lobby, I would, if I was a parent in a church lobby, I would gently hold my child's hand and walk to a quiet place to probably address it, maybe a Sunday school room that's now empty. I think our attitude needs to be helpful, not punitive. So our attitude should be, what can I teach, not tell, but what can I explain, teach, demonstrate, so that in the future, it is less likely that this attitude will show up. And I think if we have an attitude toward correction because the future matters, we look at the past to influence the future. We don't judge the past. That doesn't do anybody any good. We affect the future, and that changes what we say and how we say it. I hope that makes sense. There's more I could say, but I hope that that's a nugget that's worth someone listening to.
Dr. Kathy's encouragement for parents is really something else. It's something that is unique, I think, in this cultural moment, which is a moment that really tells us as parents that kids should make us proud or should make us fulfilled or should make us happy or whole. And what Dr. Kathy is offering here is a different perspective, that the role of parents is to guide our kids to see that we're designed to be more Christ-like. And for parents, as we align our hearts and our thinking, our minds and our actions to Christ, we will in turn discipline and encourage our kids to be more Christ-like. And that thought is actually something that comes directly out of Scripture, which is where Dr. Kathy grounds all of her wisdom and knowledge that she gives to us on a daily basis. And today, I want to highlight a special passage in Ephesians. So today I'm going to read out of Ephesians chapter 6, beginning at verse 1, and this is what it says. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you, and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord. And slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. Serve wholeheartedly, therefore, as if you were serving the Lord and not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each of you for whatever good you do, whether you are slave or free. And masters, treat your slaves in the same way. Do not threaten them, since you know that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and there is no favoritism with him. Now finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and against the powers and the authorities of this dark world and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all of this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions, with all kinds of prayers and requests. And with this in mind, be alert, and always keep on praying for the Lord's people. Pray also for me, that whenever I speak, words may be given to me, so that I will fearlessly make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it fearlessly as I should. You know, those words out of Ephesians 6 are really important, and the sequence of them is really interesting, how it calls children to obey their parents, and then fathers to train and instruct their children in the Lord. And then later on, it goes through this idea of preparing your mind and your body and your soul for battle that is going to happen. And so with this podcast, Facing the Dark, we hope that we give you this courage to fit yourself ready for the battles that are going to come down the pipe. that this weekend you'd be equipped and encouraged to go in and lean into challenging times. That God has called you to, as a parent, in this cultural moment, to train your children and the children around you in the admonition of the Lord, to know who He is and to live into the story that He has written and that He is inviting us into. We hope that this podcast is that to you, an encouragement to you. And if you have any feedback or any topics that you'd like us to address, any questions that you have big ideas for with Dr. Kathy that you're wondering about, please email us. You can do that at ask@ignitethefamily.com. Again, that's ask@ignitethefamily.com. In addition to that, we'd love to have you leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. But maybe more importantly, we'd love to have you share this podcast, different episodes that you think are really impactful with your friends, your family, and maybe even the people that you haven't necessarily met yet. Maybe this podcast could be a way for you to build community and to continue to encourage those that you have contact with. That would be a delight for us, and we believe a fulfillment of the mission that God has called us to here at Ignite the Family. So on behalf of everyone on the Celebrate Kids podcast team, my name's Wayne Stender, and with Dr. Kathy Cook here, we want to say thank you for listening, and we're looking forward to seeing you on Monday.